A
Hey
rich
there,
woman
sad
slaps
eyes.
a waitress for a simple
Don't worry,
mistake.
this is our
But when
little
the waitress
secret.
kneels to protect her
I
sick,
promise I'll keep you
whimpering
safe.
puppy, the woman's
Look
boyfriend
what you
does
did
the
to my dress!
unthinkable.
This is
He
completely
kicks her while
ruined!
she's down, shielding
I
her
am
tiny
so
dog.
sorry, ma'am. It was an
He thought his
accident.
money and his father's power made him untouchable, but he didn't know who was sitting at the counter right behind him. He wasn't just a customer, he was a Navy SEAL, and he was about to bring an entire corrupt city to its knees. Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more. Savannah breathed a heavy, humid sigh as the late afternoon sun finally began to dip, losing its white-hot battle with the Spanish moss dripping from the ancient oaks. The oppressive heat, a constant weight in the historic Georgia city, merely shifted, promising a sticky, close evening that clung to the skin like a second shirt. Inside the lamplight diner, the air was a thick concoction of old coffee, frying onions, and the sweet, clinging smell of sugar. This diner was a relic of polished chrome and checkered floors, tucked away on a cobblestone side street, its ceiling fans turning lazily, doing little more than circulating the warmth. It was caught in the quiet lull between the late lunch stragglers and the impending dinner rush, a pocket of stillness in the otherwise bustling city. Vera Hayes, 24, with deep brown eyes that held more exhaustion than the fading Georgia light, mechanically wiped down a Formica tabletop. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail that had lost its fight hours ago, and her pale blue uniform was rumpled, a testament to the double shift she was just moments from ending. Every part of her ached, a dull throb in her feet from the worn-out sneakers, a weariness that went bone deep. This wasn't just tiredness, it was a low-frequency hum of anxiety. Her gaze flickered, as it had every few minutes for the past 8 hours, to the space beneath the counter near the register. A wicker basket, mostly hidden by her own oversized purse, sat there. A moment later, a faint, almost imperceptible whimper escaped it, and Vera froze, scanning the diner. The lone man at the counter didn't look up. She moved quickly, pretending to check the napkin dispenser, and ducked down, her fingers finding the soft, warm fur inside. "Shh, Valor," she whispered, her voice barely audible. A tiny wet nose nudged her hand. "Almost home, just hold on." Valor, her 2-month-old German Shepherd puppy, had been diagnosed with a nasty kennel cough 2 days prior. The vet said he couldn't be left alone. He needed medicine every 4 hours and observation, or his breathing could fail. With no family in the city and no friend who could take a sick dog, Vera had been faced with an impossible choice. Miss the shift she desperately needed to pay the vet bill, or break every rule the diner had. The wicker basket had been her only desperate solution. The man at the counter, Adam Walker, finally looked up from his cup. He was in his late 20s, built with a dense, coiled energy that his simple gray t-shirt and jeans couldn't hide. He was on a 3-day leave, a brief respite before shipping out again, and had chosen Savannah for its anonymity. He wasn't in uniform. He was just a man trying to decompress, but his focus was absolute. His gaze was sharp and assessing. He'd been watching the waitress over the rim of his mug for the past hour. He recognized the exhaustion, but also the grit beneath it, the quiet resilience of someone holding things together with sheer force of will. He'd seen that same look in the faces of medics, of pilots, of men, pushed far past their limits. He wasn't judging. He was observing. As Vera straightened up, her cheeks flushed with the minor panic, she caught his eye. Adam gave a slight, respectful nod. Vera offered a tight, professional, and ultimately meaningless smile in return, then moved back to her tasks. The bell above the diner door chimed, sharp and intrusive, shattering the quiet. The couple that entered didn't just walk in, they made an entrance. He was Bryce Vandermeer, radiating the easy arrogance of inherited wealth. His linen shirt was impeccably creased, his loafers worn without socks, and a heavy gold watch gleamed on his wrist. On his arm, almost a matching accessory, was Tinsley Croft. She was blonde, immaculate, her white sundress looking painfully out of place in the greasy spoon. She wore a petulant mouth and eyes that scanned the diner's interior as if it were a personal insult. "A booth," Tinsley announced, her voice high and clear, cutting through the low hum of the fans. "By the window. And check the seat, I don't want anything sticky." Vera, plastering on her customer service smile, grabbed 2 menus. "Right this way." The encounter was doomed from the start. Tinsley sent back her water twice. "I asked for sparkling," she snapped, gesturing at the glass of club soda Vera had brought. "Perrier with a lime wedge. Not a slice. Is that so difficult?" Vera's smile tightened, the muscle in her jaw jumping. "My apologies, ma'am. We only have club soda or tap." Tinsley let out an exaggerated sigh. "Fine. Just bring me a Diet Cola and the Caesar salad. But no egg, no bacon, no blue cheese, and avocado on the side. Not mashed." Bryce, meanwhile, barely looked up from his phone, merely grunting, "Burger, medium, and a beer, whatever's domestic." Vera nodded, her pen digging into the pad, and retreated to the safety of the kitchen pass-through. When Vera returned with the drinks, the tension was thicker, the humidity in the diner seeming to press in on them. She set the Diet Cola down, perhaps a little too quickly, her hand eager to retract. Tinsley, gesturing wildly with a diamond-clad hand while complaining to Bryce about a recent yacht club snub, knocked the glass over. Dark, fizzy liquid flooded the table, splashing onto the pristine white of her couture dress. A heavy silence descended. Tinsley looked down at the spreading stain on her lap, then up at Vera, her face, a mask of curated indifference, crumpled into raw, spoiled rage. "You clumsy oaf! Look what you did! Look at it!" Vera, mortified, lunged forward with a handful of napkins. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. It was an accident." "Let me get a cloth!" Tinsley shrieked, batting Vera's hands away with a sharp crack of nails on skin. "Are you incompetent? You did that on purpose. You ruined my dress." "Ma'am, I assure you I did not." The sound of the slap was shockingly loud in the small diner. It cracked through the air like a dry branch snapping. Tinsley, in a fit of theatrical fury, had struck Vera full across the face. The force of it snapped Vera's head to the side. At the counter, Adam Walker was already off his stool, his body moving with a silent, economic grace, but the sound had triggered a more immediate reaction. From beneath the counter, the wicker basket, jostled by the commotion and sensing the violence directed at Vera, exploded with a series of sharp, high-pitched, terrified yaps. Tinsley recoiled, her hand still raised, her eyes wide with disgust. "What is that?" she hissed. Bryce Vandermeer's boredom finally broke. His eyes narrowed, following the sound. He strode to the end of the counter and looked behind it. "A dog," he sneered, spotting the basket. "You brought a filthy animal in here?" Vera, her cheeks stinging, her eyes flooding with tears of humiliation and panic, saw the look in his eyes. He was going to kick the basket. She didn't think. She reacted. "No!" she screamed, throwing herself between the man and the counter, curling her body protectively over the small wicker basket. "Please, he's just a baby. He's sick." Bryce didn't hesitate. With Vera's back exposed, her body curved over the basket, he drew back his foot clad in its expensive leather loafer and kicked her hard in the ribs. Vera cried out, a sharp gasp of pain as the air was forced from her lungs, collapsing onto the basket as the force of the blow reverberated through her. The sound of it was sickeningly dull. The dull thud of Bryce Vandermeer's kick landing on Vera's ribs echoed in the suddenly silent diner. Vera gasped, curling tighter over the basket, a wave of pure white-hot pain stealing her breath. Bryce, his face flushed with a petty, victorious rage, drew his foot back again, aiming for the same spot. He never got the chance. Adam Walker crossed the 10 feet between the counter and the couple in what felt like a single, liquid movement. He didn't rush, he didn't charge. He simply arrived, intercepting Bryce's leg mid-swing. Adam's motion was economical, precise, and utterly terrifying in its efficiency. He didn't punch, he didn't grapple. He used Bryce's own momentum against him. With one hand, Adam deflected the kick, and with the other, he secured Bryce's wrist. In the same fluid motion, he spun, using his hip as a fulcrum, and applied pressure. Bryce, who had never experienced controlled violence in his life, yelped as his arm was forced into an armbar lock he couldn't break. Adam twisted, walking Bryce forward until he slammed chest first into the edge of the very counter where Adam had been sitting. The heavy gold watch on Bryce's wrist cracked against the formica. "You've made a mistake," Adam said, his voice low and calm, utterly devoid of anger. He applied just enough pressure to Bryce's locked elbow to keep him pinned, his face pressed against the sticky surface. The entire diner, the cook frozen with spatula in hand, 2 truckers in a booth, and Tinsley, stared, mouths agape. Tinsley found her voice first. It was a shrill, glass-shattering shriek. "Let him go! Do you know who he is? Do you know who I am? My father is Judge Croft. You're dead. You're going to prison." She fumbled for her phone, her manicured fingers stabbing at the screen. "I'm calling my father! I'm calling the police on you!" Adam ignored her. While keeping Bryce immobilized with one hand, he calmly retrieved his own phone. He didn't dial. He opened his camera, the red record dot blinking to life. He panned the phone slowly, capturing a close-up of Bryce's face struggling against the counter, Tinsley screaming into her own device, and finally Vera, who was pushing herself up, tears streaming down her face, her hand clutching her side. Only then did he dial 911. His voice was steady, almost monotone, as if ordering takeout. "This is Sergeant Walker. I am at the Lamplight Diner on Drayton Street. I am witnessing an active assault by a male perpetrator on a female employee. I am also reporting animal cruelty as the male kicked the employee while she was protecting her dog. The situation is controlled. Send a unit immediately." He hung up. He hadn't raised his voice, but every word had been clear, precise, and legally damning. He looked past the struggling man and focused on Vera. "Are you injured?" he asked, his voice softening just a fraction. Vera could only nod, the shock and the pain making her dizzy. She wasn't looking at her ribs, she was fumbling with the wicker basket. The yelping had subsided into terrified whimpers. "Valor, baby, are you okay?" she whispered, pulling the tiny German Shepherd puppy out. Valor was trembling, but the kick hadn't touched him. Vera had taken the full impact. She buried her face in his fur, a sob of pure relief escaping her. Adam gave a short, sharp nod. The dog was fine. The woman was hurt, but safe. Tinsley was still screeching. "The police are coming! They're coming for you, you psycho!" Bryce, his bravado gone, was now just grunting against the counter, the pressure on his elbow agonizing. "My arm. You're breaking my arm." Adam didn't respond. He just waited, a statue of coiled patience, until the sound of sirens cut through the humid savannah air. The diner door swung open, bells jangling, and 2 police officers entered. The first was Officer Riley, a man in his late 50s, with tired, cynical eyes and a thick mustache that drooped over his mouth. The second was Officer Kent, young, sharp, with a fresh crew cut, clearly the junior partner. Riley's eyes took in the scene, the weeping waitress, the hysterical blonde, and the man in the gray t-shirt holding the city's most prominent heir against a counter. Riley's expression went from weary to alarmed, not at the violence, but at the victim of it. "Mr. Vandermeer," Riley said, his voice suddenly full of concerned deference. He walked straight past Vera and Adam. "Good heavens, are you all right? What happened?" He put a hand on Adam's shoulder. "Son, you need to let him go right now. We can sort this." Adam moved his shoulder a half inch, just enough to dislodge the officer's hand. He did not look at Riley. He looked at Kent, the younger officer, the one whose eyes were still assessing the scene rather than the bank accounts. "This man," Adam said, his voice cutting through the diner, "assaulted this woman, and when she fell, he kicked her. I intervened to stop a second kick." Tinsley rushed forward. "That's a lie! She attacked us! She spilled a drink, and then this thug attacked Bryce for no reason." Riley held up a hand, placating her. "Now, Tinsley, let's all calm down. Bryce, what's your side? It sounds like a simple misunderstanding." Bryce, seeing his rescue, began to struggle again. "He attacked me! I want him arrested for assault!" Riley nodded, turning back to Adam with a look of paternal disappointment. Son, you're in a lot of trouble here. You can't just go around attacking people. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time. Let Mr. Vandermeer go. Adam finally released the pressure, pulling Bryce's arm behind his back in a standard escort hold before pushing him toward the officers. Bryce stumbled, rubbing his wrist. Adam reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. Officer Riley sighed, pulling out his ticket book, expecting a driver's license. All right, what's your name? Adam didn't hand over his license. He flipped the wallet open to his military identification. The Golden Eagle and the holographic seal of the Department of Defense gleamed under the diner's fluorescent lights. Sergeant Adam Walker, he stated, his voice flat and official. United States Navy. My station is Naval Special Warfare Group 2. The mood in the diner, which had just begun to relax, snapped back to attention. Officer Kent visibly straightened. Officer Riley's tired eyes widened, his folksy demeanor evaporating. A Navy SEAL. Not a tourist, not a thug, a federal asset. I am the primary witness, Adam continued, to a felony assault. I have a video recording of the immediate aftermath, including the assailant's partner threatening me with judicial retaliation. He held up his phone, the red record light still blinking. I expect a full and complete report to be filed. My commanding officer will be requesting a copy. Riley swallowed, his gaze flicking from the ID to Bryce, who suddenly looked less confident. The officer's tone changed completely. I see, Sergeant, of course. We will take everyone's statements. Adam nodded, then turned to Vera, who was standing by the counter clutching Valor to her chest, pale and shaking. He moved to her side, his presence a solid wall between her and the Vandermeers. His voice was low, meant only for her. Stay calm. Just tell them exactly what happened. They have to listen now. He paused, looking at her, his eyes locking with hers, conveying the seriousness of what came next. You're going to need a witness. The aftermath in the diner was a blur of bureaucratic anticlimax. Officer Riley, his tone now clipped and professional under the watchful eye of his junior partner, took Vera's statement. She was shaking, her voice barely a whisper as she recounted the slap, the kick. Officer Kent, the younger one, diligently photographed her reddening cheek and the angry, blooming bruise on her ribs which she revealed with trembling hands. Bryce and Tinsley, now quiet and sullen, were separated and interviewed in the back of a squad car. Adam gave his statement last, clear and concise, handing over the video file from his phone via a secure military protocol that made Officer Riley visibly uncomfortable. Adam made sure to get Officer Kent's direct contact number, citing, "Follow-up for my CO's report." He also asked Kent for the address Vera had provided for the report, just to ensure the witness was safe. Kent, perhaps sensing this was the only part of the incident that felt like real police work, quietly read the address from his notebook. Adam nodded once, his expression unreadable. Finally, the police left. Bryce and Tinsley were not arrested. They were detained and released pending investigation, a phrase that made Vera's stomach clench. Adam lingered until the diner was empty, save for the shell-shocked manager. He looked at Vera. "Are you able to get home?" She just nodded, clutching the wicker basket. He walked out into the humid savannah night without another word. Vera didn't sleep. She sat on her small, worn sofa, Valor sleeping fitfully in her lap, the puppy's cough, a harsh rasp in the quiet apartment. Her ribs ached with every breath, a dull, spreading fire, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the dread that settled in her gut. She had gone up against the Vandermeers. The next morning, the dread materialized. She arrived for her scheduled shift, Valor safely and guiltily left with a double dose of medicine, only to be met at the door by her manager, Mr. Henderson. Henderson was a perpetually nervous man in his late 40s, his thin hair always slightly damp with sweat. Today, he couldn't meet her eyes. "Vera," he said, twisting a damp cloth in his hands, "we've got a problem, a huge problem. I got a call this morning from the health department. An anonymous tip about an animal in the kitchen area yesterday." Vera's blood ran cold. "Mr. Henderson, I can explain. My puppy was sick. I had no choice. It was in a basket." "I don't care, Vera," he snapped, his voice cracking with panic. Do you know who that call came from? After the health department? The Vandermeer family attorney. They own the building, Vera. They own the block. I have a mortgage. I have kids. He finally looked at her, his eyes pleading. I have to let you go. Health code violation. It's immediate. Please, just go. He pushed her final paycheck in cash into her hand and retreated into the diner, locking the door behind him. Numb, she walked the mile back to her apartment, the small studio above a closed-down antique shop. Taped to her door was a stark white envelope. It wasn't from the Vandermeers. It was from her landlord, Mr. Giles, a gruff man who lived downstairs and communicated only in grunts and official notices. This one was official. Notice to vacate. It cited a vague violation of lease terms and disturbances reported. It gave her 72 hours, 3 days. The walls were closing in. She stumbled inside, the small apartment suddenly feeling like a prison. She had no job, and in 3 days she would have no home. Defeated, she pulled out a cardboard box from under her bed and began, with shaking hands, to pack the few photos she owned. She was taping up the second box when a firm, solid knock echoed through the room. Her heart leaped into her throat. Was it Giles? The police? The knock came again, patient. She opened it a crack. It was Adam Walker. He looked just as he had in the diner, an immovable object in a gray t-shirt and jeans. In one hand he held a large bag of premium puppy food. In the other, a cardboard tray with 2 large coffees. I figured, he said, his voice calm, that you could probably use this. He nodded at the coffee. The food is for Valor. Vera stared at him, speechless. How did you find me? I got your address from Officer Kent's report, he said, a small omission of the fact he'd asked for it specifically. He looked past her shoulder at the stacked boxes, his gaze sharp and assessing. I see they already got to you. He wasn't asking, he stated it as a fact. Vera's composure, which she had held together with sheer grit, finally shattered. She stepped back and he entered, placing the items on her tiny kitchen counter. They fired me, she whispered, the words choking her. Mr. Henderson, my manager, he said, the Vandermeers called. And Mr. Giles, my landlord. He's evicting me. 72 hours. Adam's jaw tightened. He opened one of the coffees and pushed it toward her. Drink. We need to talk. Quote. They sat, Vera on the sofa, Adam on a wooden dining chair, the picture of tactical calm. I'm not here to socialize, Vera, he began, his tone measured. I'm here because I have a responsibility. Yesterday, I escalated the situation. I forced the report. I invoked my status to make sure it wasn't buried. In my line of work, we call that making contact. And when you make contact, you create a target. I made you a target. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. I'm on leave for 2 more days. I cannot, in good conscience, leave a threatened civilian witness exposed. I am here to make sure you are safe until this is resolved. Vera was so stunned by the bluntness, the sheer pragmatic decency of it, that she didn't know how to respond. She was about to ask what he meant by resolved when a second, sharper knock cut through the air. This knock wasn't patient. It was expensive. Vera looked at Adam, her eyes wide with panic. Adam simply stood, moving to the side of the door, out of sight. Who is it? Vera called, her voice trembling. Miss Hayes, a smooth baritone voice replied. We are here from Harrison and Shaw. We represent the Vandermeer family. We are here to discuss a generous resolution to yesterday's misunderstanding. Vera's hand was on the doorknob, but she looked at Adam. He gave a short, sharp nod. Open it. She opened the door. 2 men in immaculate $1,000 suits stood in her shabby hallway. The first, Mr. Shaw, was younger with a kind face and empathetic eyes. The second, Mr. Harrison, was older, reptilian, his face a mask of bored superiority. May we come in? Shaw asked, his voice like warm honey. They entered, their presence making the small apartment feel even smaller. Harrison's eyes flickered to Adam, dismissing him as furniture before landing on Vera. Shaw took the lead. Miss Hayes, on behalf of the Vandermeer family, we are here to offer our deepest apologies. Young Mr. Vandermeer was unwell. He is deeply distraught by his actions. He opened a sleek leather briefcase. To that end, the family is prepared to offer you $50,000 in cash to cover any medical expenses and, of course, your personal distress. Harrison slid a thick document and a pen across the table. "You sign this," he said, his voice a gravelly monotone. "It's a standard non-disclosure agreement. You agree not to speak of this, not to pursue charges, and the matter is concluded. Everyone moves on." $50,000. It was more money than Vera had ever seen. It was a new life. It was rent, and food, and vet bills, all solved. She looked at the paper. Then she looked at Adam, who was just watching her, his expression neutral. He was leaving it to her. She turned back to the lawyers, her spine straightening. "He kicked me," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "He assaulted me, and he terrorized my puppy. I'm not signing anything. I want him arrested." Shaw's empathetic face faltered. Harrison, however, almost smiled. He clicked his pen. "Miss Hayes," he said, his voice dropping, the false warmth gone, replaced by surgical cold. "We pulled your file. You are currently in violation of your lease, which, as we understand it, has been terminated. Your lease specifically forbids pets. You also brought that animal," he gestured to Valor, who growled low in his throat from the sofa, "into a food service establishment, a severe health code violation. You appear to be an unstable, unreliable, and unemployed guardian." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "This is what happens next. We walk out that door. We make one phone call to Savannah Animal Control. We report an aggressive animal. It is growling, after all, in an unstable, soon-to-be homeless environment. They will seize the dog by 5 o'clock today. Given the backlog at the shelter and its new, aggressive tag, it will be scheduled for euthanasia before the weekend. Or, you pick up that pen, sign the paper, and all your problems, and your dogs disappear." The silence in Vera's apartment was absolute, broken only by the low, threatening growl from Valor on the sofa. Mr. Harrison's smile was a thin, bloodless line of a victor's smirk. "The weekend," he repeated, savoring the words. Vera was frozen, her mind screaming. The money, the job, the apartment, all of it was secondary. They were threatening her dog. They were going to take her puppy, her only family, and kill him. Her hand resting on the table was shaking so violently the cheap wood vibrated. Mr. Shaw, the younger lawyer, looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight, but Mr. Harrison stared at Vera, waiting for her surrender. Then Adam moved. He hadn't spoken since the lawyers entered, a silent presence by the wall. Now he stepped forward, not toward the lawyers but into Vera's line of sight, blocking her view of Harrison. "Vera," he said. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the room with an authority that stopped the clock. "Look at me." She tore her eyes from the pen and met his. They were calm, steady, and utterly void of fear. "He's bluffing," Adam said. Harrison let out a short, sharp laugh. "Am I, Sergeant?" "I assure you my connections at Animal Control are quite real." "You're bluffing about the outcome," Adam clarified, still looking only at Vera. "You think you're the first bully to leverage a family member. It's a classic, tired move." He finally turned, his gaze falling on Harrison. The shift in temperature was immediate. "You're not bluffing about your connections. You're bluffing about my response. You think I'll let you?" He took a step toward the lawyer. "You made a threat to coerce a signature on a legal document in my presence. That's extortion. You detailed how you would use city resources to do it. That's conspiracy. You just made yourselves material witnesses to your own felony." Shaw's face went pale. Harrison's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of genuine anger. "You can't prove." "I don't have to," Adam interrupted. "You call Animal Control, I'll call the Savannah Morning News. Vandermeer family attempts to euthanize puppy to silence assault victim. How does that headline sound?" He gestured to the door. "Your time is up. Leave." For a long moment, Harrison stared, his mind calculating the new math. The optics, the sight of a rich man's lawyer taking a puppy to be killed, was, he concluded, bad for business. He snapped his briefcase shut. "The offer is rescinded, Miss Hayes. You've made a grave error." He and Shaw were out the door a second later. The moment the lock clicked, Vera's legs gave out. She sank onto the sofa, pulling Valor into her lap, burying her face in his fur. "He wasn't bluffing," she sobbed, her voice muffled. "Not really. They can still do it. They'll just do it while I'm at work. They'll say he ran away. Yes, they will," Adam said, his voice grim. "That was their legal move. Now that you've refused, they'll move to the illegal one. They won't wait for the weekend. You're not safe here." He was already on his phone, not the standard call app, but an encrypted one. He pressed a single contact. "Marcus, it's Walker. I'm calling in that favor." Vera looked up, wiping her eyes. "I've got a package, a civilian witness and her K9. He glanced at Valor, a small sign of respect. "Needs a sterile environment. Off the grid. Yesterday. Savannah." He listened. "Yes, it's that bad. Systemic. The family owns the local PD." He listened again, his face a mask. "Roger. I'll cover the expense. Sending you the file now." He hung up and looked at Vera. The calm observer was gone, replaced by the soldier. "Grab Valor, his medicine, your laptop, and anything you cannot live without. In the next 5 minutes, we're moving. Now." They didn't take the stairs. They took the back fire escape and walked 2 blocks to a public parking garage. A black, nondescript SUV was waiting in a reserved spot. The man who got out was the physical opposite of Adam. Where Adam was coiled energy and tactical silence, this man was a mountain. He was easily 6'5", heavily bearded, and wore a surprisingly cheerful Hawaiian shirt. This was Marcus Rell, an ex-Marine who now ran a very exclusive, very expensive, private security firm. "Adam," Marcus boomed, his voice a friendly rumble. "You look terrible. This must be the package." He smiled at Vera, a warm, disarming expression. "Vera Hayes, I presume? I'm Marcus. Don't worry, your friend here just cost me about 10 grand in resources, so I'm going to make sure you're worth it. Valor, right?" He produced a dog treat from his pocket. Valor, his tail wagging, limped over. "Good boy." Marcus opened the SUV door. "In, both of you." They drove to the Riverbend, a towering steel and glass residential building that catered to out-of-state corporate executives. Biometric security, 24-hour staffed concierge who are all my guys, and owned by a shell company in Delaware. Marcus explained as they rode a private elevator. "The Vandermeers can't even get past the lobby. You're registered as Jane Smith, here for a software convention." He opened a door to a stunning apartment, all cold white walls and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. "Adam has the only other key." Marcus turned to leave. Trying not to break anything, it's on his tab. The apartment was beautiful, but it was a cage. For 2 days, Vera and Adam existed in the sterile silence. Adam was respectful, taking the small second bedroom, but he was always present. He was either on his phone in low, serious tones, or he was watching. Vera was restless, anxious, pacing the floor while Valor, still weak from his cough, whimpered by the door. On the second afternoon, Adam finally spoke. "He's not just sick," he said, nodding at the dog. "He's a German shepherd. He's bored. A bored shepherd is a destructive shepherd. He needs a job. It will focus him. It will focus you." Vera looked at him, confused. "What job?" "Surviving," Adam said, "and training." He unclipped Valor's leash. "I have experience with K9 units. His medicine schedule is 0800, 1200, 1600, and 2000. Between those, we train." For the next 48 hours, the sterile apartment became a boot camp. Adam was a natural, patient teacher. "No," he said as Vera tried to pull Valor back from the door. "Don't pull. Use your body. Stand tall. Be the pack leader. He's looking for a leader right now. He thinks he's protecting you. You need to show him you're protecting him." It was a metaphor so strong it almost hurt. Vera, at first timid, began to find her voice. She started standing taller. When she gave Valor the sit command, her voice was firm. The puppy, sensing the shift, obeyed instantly. Through the shared task of healing Valor, they learned to communicate. Vera saw the discipline and profound, quiet gentleness under Adam's hardened exterior. Adam saw the resilience he had first glimpsed in the diner. This wasn't a victim. This was a fighter who just hadn't been trained. On the third morning, Valor was a different dog. The cough was gone. He was all clumsy paws and puppy energy, bouncing off the expensive furniture. "He needs to run," Vera said, laughing as Valor stole her sneaker. Adam checked his watch. "It's a risk, but it's necessary." They went at 5 a.m. to a small, isolated dog park by the river, a patch of green hidden by old brick warehouses. Adam stood watch, scanning the perimeter, his body language relaxed but his eyes constantly moving. Vera unclipped the leash. For 10 minutes, everything was normal. Vera laughed, a real, genuine sound, as Valor, ecstatic with freedom, tumbled after a stick. Adam watched her, a small private smile touching his own lips. The sound of a low, rumbling engine shattered the dawn quiet. A bright red sports car, identical to the one Tinsley had been complaining about, rolled to a stop on the street bordering the park. The car didn't park, it just idled, the sound an invasive threat. The tinted window rolled down. It was Bryce. He was wearing sunglasses even in the dawn light, and a smirk. He put the car in neutral and revved the engine. A sharp, deafening V-room ripped through the air. Valor yelped, dropping the stick and cowering by Vera's legs. Bryce laughed, a sound they could hear clearly across the grass. He didn't speak. He just revved the engine again, a calculated act of terror, then slowly, casually rolled away. Vera was shaking, her laughter gone. "He knows," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He found us. He knows where we are." Adam's face was granite. He was holding his phone, the screen facing out. He had been recording the entire thing. "No," Adam said, his voice cold. "He doesn't know where we are now. He just knows where we were. He followed us from the building. But he just made his second mistake." He was already dialing Officer Kent. He said, his voice pure ice. "This is Sergeant Walker. I need to report a direct act of witness intimidation and harassment in violation of the pending assault case. Yes, I have video." The drive to the police precinct was silent, a stark contrast to the brief, false dawn of hope they'd felt in the park. The black SUV moved through the morning traffic of Savannah, a sterile, secure bubble. Vera sat in the passenger seat, clutching Valor's leash so tightly her knuckles were white. The puppy, sensing the renewed tension, was quiet in his carrier at her feet. Adam drove, his expression unreadable, a mask of calm. He had the video. He had the law on his side. But the cold knot in his stomach told him the fight was just beginning. He had called Officer Kent, the younger cop, directly and told him they were on their way to file the restraining order as advised. Kent had hesitated, a brief, strange pause on the line, before he said, "Okay, Sergeant, I'll be ready." The precinct lobby was a picture of bored municipal dysfunction, scuffed linoleum floors, flickering fluorescent lights, and the stale smell of old paper and disinfectant. Officer Kent was waiting just inside the doors, looking pale. "Sergeant Walker, Miss Hayes," he said, his voice low, avoiding their eyes. "If you'll come this way, we can get the paperwork." He led them not to an interview room, but to a small, crowded desk in the middle of the bullpen, as if trying to hide them in plain sight. Adam stopped, his presence demanding attention. "Officer," We're not just here for paperwork. We're here to file an immediate restraining order based on witness harassment. I have video evidence." He held up his phone. Kent flinched, his eyes darting toward a glass-walled office at the back of the room where a large, imposing man sat watching them. "Sir, I think it's best if you just fill out the 7 to 95 form." "Is there a problem, Kent?" The voice boomed across the bullpen, thick with a syrupy old guard southern accent. The man from the office emerged, filling the doorway. This was Police Chief Miller, a man in his late 50s with a florid, jolly face, a perfectly tailored uniform straining against a comfortable paunch, and eyes as small and sharp as a boar's. He radiated a false backslapping charm, the kind of man who was friends with everyone who mattered. He walked toward them, his hand outstretched to Adam. "Sergeant Walker!" "A true pleasure. I'm Chief Miller. Heard we had one of America's finest visiting our city. My brother-in-law was in the Navy. You know, submarines. Good man." Adam did not take the offered hand. He simply nodded. "Chief, we're here to report a crime." Miller's smile didn't waver. "So I hear. Kent tells me you had some friction with one of our local families. Young Bryce Vandermeer. He's a handful, that one. Full of vinegar. His father and I go way back. Golf buddies." He said it casually, a friendly aside that was in reality a clear and precise declaration of allegiance. "Now what's this about a video?" Adam's face remained impassive. "This morning at 0515, the suspect, Mr. Vandermeer, deliberately stalked and intimidated Miss Hayes, a protected witness in his ongoing assault case. I have the video." He held out the phone. Miller took it, his smile finally fading as he squinted at the screen. He watched the 30-second clip of the red sports car, the revving engine, the clear sound of Bryce's laughter. He watched it twice. Then he handed the phone back. "Well, Sergeant," he said, chuckling as if sharing a joke, "I appreciate your tactical enthusiasm, but what I see here is a young man revving his engine in a public park. I don't hear a threat, I don't see a weapon. You can't even really be sure that's Bryce in the car, could be any fella in a red car." "It was him," Vera said, her voice shaking but clear. "He was laughing at us." Miller turned his full paternalistic charm on her. "Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but harassment in the legal sense requires a credible, specific threat. Revving an engine? Well, that's just a boy being loud. It's not enough to stand up in court. It's not enough for a judge to sign off on a TRO. And the assault in the diner?" Adam cut in, his voice like ice. "The video of that?" "A blurry, unfortunate misunderstanding," Miller said, his tone hardening. "Tinsley Croft's father, Judge Croft, has already been in touch. He assures me it was a chaotic scene, that you, Sergeant, escalated the situation, and that his daughter was the one who felt threatened. It's a real he said she said mess, I'm afraid." He clapped Adam on the shoulder. "Look, son, I know you mean well, you're a hero, but this is our town, and we know our people. This is a family dispute, you're fanning the flames." Adam didn't move. "So you're refusing to file the report?" Miller's eyes narrowed. "I'm not refusing anything. Of course you can fill out the form." He motioned to Kent. "Get the sergeant and Miss Hayes the 7 to 95 form. We will file it with all the other reports from this morning. We'll look right into it." He gave them another politician's smile. "Thank you for your service, Sergeant." He turned and walked back to his office, the conversation over. Kent, his face pale, handed them the clipboard. Adam looked at the form, then at Kent, then at the closed door of Miller's office. He knew with absolute certainty that the form would land in a shredder before they even reached the parking lot. They drove back to the river bend in silence. The wall of corruption wasn't a metaphor. They had just physically hit it. Back in the sterile high-rise apartment, Vera finally crumpled. "That's it then," she whispered, sinking onto the white leather sofa. He just did it in front of you." He smiled and told us, "They own the entire city. They'll never stop. Even if we hide, they'll just wait." Adam stood by the window, watching the Savannah River far below. He checked his watch, 11th hour. He had less than 24 hours before his leave officially expired. He had to be on a plane by tomorrow afternoon. He had failed. He had intervened, escalated, and cornered this woman, and now he was going to abandon her. If he left, the Vandermeers wouldn't wait a day. They would find her. The lawyers, the eviction, the dog, all of it would come crashing down. He could take her with him, but where? To his base? Illegally? He was a soldier, not a bodyguard. He was trapped by his own sense of duty. Adam, Vera's voice was small. What do we do? Adam turned from the window. His face was a mask of cold, hard calculation. They've compromised the local system, he said, more to himself than to her. They've established a pattern of intimidation. They've blocked the legal channels. He was assessing a target, planning a breach. And now, he said, they've made the mistake of impeding a federal asset. Vera looked confused. What? Me? No, he said. He pulled out his phone. I'm not just a tourist, Vera. I'm an active duty operator. My ability to return to my unit is a matter of national security. And right now, this organization is impeding me. He was making the call he never wanted to make, the call that signaled a situation was hopelessly out of control. He wasn't calling a friend. He was calling his Master Chief. The phone picked up on the second ring. Master Chief, this is Walker. I'm stateside. Savannah. He listened. No, sir. Leave is fine. But I have a high-priority situation. Sir, I am currently being targeted and harassed by a local political organization. They have compromised my secure location and are actively attempting to intimidate me with the full cooperation of the local police. He listened again, his back straight. Yes, sir, me. My assessment is that this organization poses a direct security risk. I am a witness in a felony assault case, and the local PD is actively suppressing the investigation. No, sir. I am not compromised, but my ability to safely extract from this city and return to duty is... This situation requires containment. He used the words he knew they would understand. Target, security risk, compromised, extraction. He wasn't just Adam, he was Sergeant Walker, a multi-million-dollar government asset. He hung up, his face set. What did they say? Vera asked. Master Chief isn't happy, Adam said. He said I was a magnet for trouble. The phone buzzed on the counter, an unknown number with a Washington, D.C. area code. He put it on speaker. Sergeant Walker? A woman's voice, crisp, sharp, and all business came through. This is Special Agent Hayes, Naval Criminal Investigative Service. I'm being briefed on your situation, Sergeant. I'm on the first flight from Quantico. My ETA at Savannah/Hilton Head is 16:30. Do not engage the targets further. Do not leave your current location. Await my arrival. The call ended. Adam looked at Vera. The game had just changed. It wasn't a local issue anymore. It was a federal one. The wait was its own kind of torture. The hours between the phone call and 16:30 stretched elastic and thin in the silent, climate-controlled apartment. Adam Walker, a man trained for the agonizing patience of surveillance, was perfectly still. He field-stripped and cleaned his handgun, a personal model he was licensed to carry on leave. The metallic shing click of the parts sliding back together, the only sound in the room. He was methodical, his breathing slow. This was his version of meditation. Vera, however, was a wreck. She paced the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the Savannah River flow by, imagining every car on the bridge below was looking for her. Valor, sensing her distress, whimpered at her feet. Stop pacing, Adam said, not looking up from his work. You're burning energy you might need. Vera stopped, her hands twisting. How can you be so calm? A federal agent is coming. What if she's just like Miller? What if she's friends with Miller? Adam snapped the slide back into place with finality. She's NCIS, he said, as if that explained everything. She's not a cop, she's an investigator. She doesn't have friends. She has jurisdiction. And right now, we're in it. At 16:29, Vera's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. At 16:30, precisely on the second, there was a knock. It wasn't the polite tap of a guest or the aggressive pound of a lawyer. It was 3 sharp, concise, non-negotiable raps. Adam opened the door. The woman standing in the hallway was the antithesis of Chief Miller's false Southern charm. She was in her mid-40s, wearing a practical dark gray pantsuit that screamed federal rather than fashion. Her dark hair was pulled into a bun so tight it seemed to pull the skin at her temples. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and utterly cold. She scanned Adam, then the apartment layout, before her gaze finally landed on Vera. She didn't smile. "Special Agent Hayes," she said, her voice a crisp monotone. She held up her credentials. Her name, Hayes, J., was printed below the eagle. Vera stared, the irony lost on her in the moment. Like me?" Vera whispered. Agent Hayes ignored this. "May I come in?" She didn't move to the sofa. She stood in the center of the living room, a tactical position, and looked directly at Adam. She had not, as far as Vera could tell, even acknowledged Valor, who was growling low in his throat. "Sergeant Walker," Hayes began, "I've reviewed your preliminary report. Let's be clear on why I am here. I am not here about a diner fight. I am not here about Mr. Vandermeer's feelings. I am not here to mediate a local dispute. I am here because a local police chief, a judge, and a civilian organization are actively conspiring to impede the duties of a federal officer. That is my jurisdiction. My job is to neutralize the threat to you, Sergeant, and by extension, your witness." She finally turned her full, undivided attention to Vera. "Which makes you, Miss Hayes, a federal witness. Your problems just got bigger, and your protection just got better. Do you understand?" Vera could only nod. This woman was terrifying, and Vera had never been so glad to see anyone in her life. For the next hour, Hayes was a scalpel. She interviewed Adam first, then Vera. Her questions were sharp, precise, and relentless. "When did he threaten you? What were the exact words? Who else was present? Did you feel your life was in danger?" She collected the video from Adam's phone of the car incident and the original file from the diner. She took copies of Vera's termination notice and the 72-hour eviction, labeling them Exhibit C and Exhibit D, retaliation against a federal witness. She documented everything. When she was done, she stood up. "My assessment," she said to Adam, "is that the subjects, Vandermeer and Croft, do not perceive the severity of their actions. They believe this is a local matter they can control through nepotism." She looked at her watch. "I need to correct that perception. I will handle Tinsley Croft. Sergeant, you will remain here and secure the witness." Hayes didn't ask for Tinsley's location. She already knew. An hour later, Tinsley Croft was lying on a padded table at the Azure Spa, a cucumber mask over her eyes, enjoying an afternoon of her father's money. "Miss Croft?" Tinsley jolted, cucumber sliding as Agent Hayes stood over her, credentials displayed. "Special Agent Hayes, NCIS, we need to talk." Tinsley, wrapped in a fluffy white robe, was immediately indignant. "How did you get in here? I'm busy. Whatever it is, you can talk to my father. He's Judge Croft." Agent Hayes held up a hand, a gesture that demanded silence. "Miss Croft," Hayes said, her voice dangerously quiet, "let me be very clear. Your father is a state judge. I am a federal agent. Your father's jurisdiction ends at the state line. Mine does not. I'm not here to talk about your spa day. I'm here to talk about 10 U.S. Code, paragraph 922, conspiracy to interfere with military duty, and 18 U.S. Code, paragraph 1512, tampering with a federal witness." Tinsley's petulant look faltered, replaced by confusion. I don't know what you're talking about. We didn't do anything. That soldier attacked Bryce." "You were present during a felony assault," Hayes continued as if Tinsley hadn't spoken. "You were present during an act of witness intimidation this morning. You participated in a conspiracy to file a false police report against Sergeant Walker, a member of the United States Armed Forces. That is a federal crime." Hayes leaned in, her voice dropping. "You are currently looking at 10 years. Not in a cozy state facility where your father can send you care packages. In a federal penitentiary. In Florida. Or perhaps Arizona. We have a very nice facility in Arizona. Hot, dry, lots of concrete." The image, so specific, so brutal, finally broke through Tinsley's bubble of privilege. The reality of consequences, real, unavoidable federal consequences, hit her. She wasn't loyal to Bryce, she was loyal to her lifestyle. She burst into tears, the mask cracking. "It wasn't me, it's Bryce. He's crazy," she sobbed, sitting up. "He's obsessed. He won't let it go. He keeps talking about it. He calls the soldier, Sergeant Psycho, and says his dad is handling the chief. He says he's going to teach them both a lesson. I told him to stop, but he won't listen." Hayes's face remained impassive. "You're accusing your boyfriend of conspiracy. A bold move. I assume you have proof. Or is this just a desperate attempt to save yourself?" Tinsley, in her selfish panic, was eager to prove her worth. "I do. I have proof." She scrambled for her designer handbag, pulling out her phone, her hands shaking. Tinsley, it turned out, was the kind of person who recorded everything. For leverage, for drama, for posterity. "He was drunk last night," she whispered. "Bragging to his friends on a call. I recorded it." She pressed play. Bryce's voice, loud, arrogant, and slurring, filled the quiet spa room. "The chief? He's a joke. My dad owns him. He already shredded the soldier's report. Gone. And that waitress, she's next. I'll teach them both. You don't mess with a Vandermeer." Tinsley looked up, her face a mess of tears and cucumber pulp. "See? It's him, not me." Agent Hayes stopped the recording. She calmly airdropped the audio file to her own device. "This is a good start, Miss Croft. Your cooperation will be noted." She stood up, all business again. "An agent will be in contact to get your official sworn statement. Do not leave Savannah. And do not contact Bryce Vandermeer. If you do, this deal is off, and I will personally see to it that you learn to love the desert." She walked out, leaving Tinsley Croft alone and shaking in the lavender-scented room. The tide had turned. The sterile white apartment at the river bend had transformed from a refuge into a federal command center. The transition was swift and absolute. Agent Hayes of NCIS, it turned out, did not travel light. By 8 p.m., the living room was occupied by two grim-faced FBI agents in identical dark suits, setting up monitoring equipment on the glass coffee table. The senior agent introduced himself as Agent Thorne, a tall, lean man with a face that looked carved from tired granite. He was the head of the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force in Savannah, a man who had been trying to get a hook into the Vandermeer family for years. Hayes, in her crisp pantsuit, was NCIS. She held jurisdiction over the military-related crime, the threat to Adam. Thorne, in his, was FBI. He held jurisdiction over the civilian crime, the corruption of the judge and the police chief. The audio file Tinsley had provided, confirming Bryce's boast that his father handled the chief, was the legal bridge they needed to form a joint task force. "The recording is excellent," Thorne said, his voice a low gravel. "It proves conspiracy to obstruct, but it's not enough to guarantee a conviction against the father. What we need is an overt act." "What we need," Agent Hayes cut in, her tone sharp, "is to demonstrate in real time that the subjects are willing and able to use their power to commit a federal crime, namely, witness tampering and conspiracy to commit bodily harm." She looked at Vera and Adam, who were sitting on the sofa, effectively prisoners in their own safe house. "You two are benched. Sergeant Walker, you are a witness, not an operator. Your part is done. Miss Hayes, you are the victim. Your part is to stay alive. We are moving to the operational phase." Adam's jaw was a tight line. He was a caged animal forced to watch others hunt on his behalf. Vera was just trying to breathe. Her fate, her home, her dog, all hanging on a plan she wasn't even privy to. Agent Hayes turned to her laptop, where Tinsley Croft, looking pale and terrified, sat in a video call from another secure room. "Miss Croft," Hayes commanded, "you're going to make the call. You're going to tell Mr. Vandermeer that I threatened you. You're going to say you are terrified and you want to run. You will say you need money to disappear, but you are afraid the soldier and the waitress will track you down. You are going to suggest that you wish someone would solve the problem for good. Tinsley, her face blotchy and tear-streaked, nodded. Hayes dialed the number. The call was on speaker. "Bryce?" Tinsley's voice was a perfect, panicked squeak. "Bryce, oh my, you won't believe what just happened." "What?" Bryce's voice was sharp, annoyed. "Tinsley, I'm busy." "That federal agent, the NCIS woman, she came to the spa. She threatened me. She said 10 years in federal prison, Bryce. 10 years." "What?" Bryce's voice was suddenly focused. "She can't do that. She's bluffing. My father—" "I don't care about your father," Tinsley shrieked, a performance worthy of an award. "This is federal. I want out. I'm running. I'm going to Europe. I need money. But I'm scared. What if they follow me? That soldier, he's a psycho. You have to fix this, Bryce. Fix the real problem. Fix her." There was a long, cold pause on the line. The agents in the room were frozen. Then Bryce laughed, a low, arrogant sound. "Calm down. You're hysterical. You're right. It's time to fix this. My father has been too gentle. You want to run? Fine, I'll get you the money." He paused. "And I'll solve the other problem my way. Meet me at the Hamilton Turner Inn, private suite, 9 o'clock tonight. And don't worry, I'm bringing security." Bryce clicked off. Agent Thorne looked at Hayes, a rare flicker of respect in his eyes. "He's arrogant," Thorne said. "He's not just coming, he's bringing security. He just escalated." Hayes nodded, all business. "He's bringing Officer Russo," she said. Tinsley had confirmed it in an earlier debrief. Russo was a disgraced patrolman on the Vandermeer payroll. He thinks he's bringing a bot cop. In reality, he's bringing a co-conspirator to a federal sting. The trap was set. The Hamilton Turner Inn, a historic, opulent building, was crawling with feds. By 8 p.m. they had Suite 201, the room next door, and the entire hallway wired for audio and video. Tinsley, now wearing a wire, sat on a velvet couch shaking so hard a makeup agent had to blot her face. At 9:05 p.m. Bryce arrived. He wasn't alone. With him was Officer Russo, a beefy man in a cheap suit, his eyes darting around the room, clearly uncomfortable to be out of his jurisdiction. He was, as the summary had predicted, the security Bryce had promised. "Russo, wait by the door," Bryce commanded, already dismissing him. He walked over to Tinsley, carrying a leather duffel bag. He looked annoyed, not scared. "You're a mess," he said, dropping the bag on the table. "Here, 50,000. Enough to get you to Paris or whatever." Tinsley looked at the bag, then at Bryce, her eyes wide with fear. But what about them?" she whispered. "The waitress." "The soldier?" Bryce sighed, his patience gone. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope separate from the duffel bag. "This," he said, tapping the envelope, "is for the real problem. I thought I'd just have to scare them. But the soldier? He's an infection. And the waitress, she's the disease." He threw the envelope on top of the duffel bag. "That's an extra 20,000. Russo has a friend, someone who cleans things up." Tinsley, fed her lines by Hayes, had to be specific. What do you mean, cleans things up?" Bryce laughed, exasperated. "What do you think I mean?" "I want them gone, Tinsley. I want the waitress and her stupid yapping dog to disappear. Take a long walk in the marsh, you know? And the soldier? He gets a visit. He'll wish he'd never left his little boat. Russo's friend will handle the details." He had said it. He had handed over the money. He had specified the targets, Vera and Valor. He had detailed the plan. Gone, disappear, a visit. He had linked the crime to the cash. In the next room, Agent Hayes spoke 2 words into her mic. "We're green. Go." The door to the suite burst open, splintering the frame. "FBI! NCIS! Down on the ground! Now!" Bryce Vandermeer froze, his hand still on the envelope, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. Officer Russo, the bot cop, fumbled for his weapon but was tackled by 2 FBI agents before his hand even cleared the holster. Bryce Vandermeer, Agent Thorne intoned, walking through the chaos. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, tampering with a federal witness, and bribery." "You can't do this," Bryce screamed, his arrogance returning even as his hands were cuffed. "My father is Judge Croft. You're all fired." "Your father," Agent Hayes said, stepping into the room to look him in the eye, "is a little busy." As she spoke, a coordinated citywide operation unrolled. 2 blocks away, a fleet of black FBI vehicles, lights flashing, sealed the entrance to the Savannah Police Precinct. Chief Miller, who was just leaving, was met on the steps by Agent Thorne, who presented him with a warrant for obstruction of justice and conspiracy. And across town in the quiet oak-lined streets of the historic district, Judge Richard Croft, Bryce's father, was in his study enjoying a brandy. He looked up, annoyed, as a car door slammed. He opened his front door to find Agent Hayes flanked by 2 U.S. Marshals. "Judge Croft," she said, her voice devoid of all emotion, "you are under arrest for conspiracy, racketeering, and obstruction of justice. Please put your hands behind your back." The entire corrupt machine, the wall that had seemed insurmountable just 24 hours ago, had been dismantled in a single perfectly executed trap. The fall of the House of Vandermeer was as swift as it was total in the federal system. The audio recording of Bryce offering $20,000 to make Vera and Valor disappear, combined with the recorded boasts of his father controlling the police chief, was a fatal blow. Facing an ironclad federal conspiracy case, Bryce Vandermeer, his father Judge Croft, and Police Chief Miller took plea deals to avoid a media circus trial that would air all their dirty laundry. Tinsley Croft, for her full and immediate cooperation, received 2 years of probation and community service, which she served, much to her horror, sorting files in a windowless federal building. The Vandermeer empire, built on corruption, crumbled. Agent Hayes, true to her word, did not leave a single loose end before she flew back to Quantico. She sat with Vera and Adam in the sterile apartment. "The criminal case is closed," she said, her voice the same crisp monotone. "But the civil case is just beginning." She introduced Vera to a thin, severe man named Mr. Stone, a lawyer from the Department of Justice's Asset Forfeiture and Victim Restitution Division. Mr. Stone, who looked like he'd never smiled in his life, proceeded to dismantle the Vandermeers, remaining civil assets with the cold precision of a surgeon. 6 months later, Vera Hayes was no longer unemployed. She was, however, declining a job offer. Mr. Henderson, the sweaty, nervous manager from the Lamplight Diner, had found her. The diner was under new ownership, seized in the federal case, and sold. "Vera," he said, twisting his hat, "they said I could keep my job. The new owners. They heard about you. They'd love to. Well, they'd love for you to come back." Vera looked at the man, seeing not the boss who had fired her, but just another person who had been afraid. She was sitting on the porch of a small, whitewashed farmhouse 20 miles outside Savannah. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice clear and strong. "But I'm not a waitress anymore." He nodded, understanding, and left. The settlement from the Vandermeer civil suit, handled by Mr. Stone, had been substantial. It wasn't a lottery win. It was restitution. It was the price of her terror, her job, her home, and the kick that had bruised her ribs. It was enough. It was enough to buy this, a 10-acre farm that had seen better days, with a leaky barn roof and fences that needed mending. But it was hers. She turned the place into Valor's Haven. The name was the first thing she decided on. It wasn't a fancy K9 training facility, not yet. It was a rescue, a sanctuary for German shepherds who were difficult, who were labeled aggressive, who were sitting on death row at shelters, the ones she thought that just needed a leader. The leaky barn was now a state-of-the-art kennel. The fields were now agility courses and training runs. And Valor himself, no longer a sick, tiny puppy, was now a magnificent 9-month-old juvenile, all legs, muscle, and boundless healthy energy. He was the official greeter, a testament to what a little safety and a lot of work could accomplish. Vera, too, was transformed. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by a wiry strength from hauling feed bags and running dogs. Her hair was still in a ponytail, but it was one of purpose, not defeat. She had found her new uniform: jeans, work boots, and a t-shirt stained with mud and dog hair. She was mending a section of fence, Valor helping by trying to steal her hammer, when the truck pulled up the long gravel driveway. It wasn't a black, anonymous SUV. It was a dusty blue Ford pickup. Adam Walker got out. He looked the same: jeans, a gray t-shirt, the same coiled energy, but he looked tired too. His leave, which had been extended for the investigation and then again for the debriefs, was finally over. He was shipping out tomorrow. "Vera," he said, nodding. "Adam," she replied, wiping her hands on her jeans. Valor bounded over, not as a protector but as a friend, tail wagging, and nudged Adam's hand. "He remembers you," Vera said. "Of course he does," Adam said, rubbing the dog's ears. "He's smart." They walked the property, the late afternoon sun casting long, golden shadows across the fields. He didn't speak for a long time, just observed the new roof on the barn, the solid fencing, the confidence with which Vera called to the other dogs in the kennels, quieting them with a single firm command. "This is good work," he said, not as a compliment but as a statement of fact. "This is a good mission." "You taught me how to do it," Vera said, stopping near the edge of the woods. "You taught me how to be the leader." "No," Adam said. "I taught you some commands. You were already the leader. You just didn't know it. You were protecting him in that diner before you even knew me." The silence settled between them, comfortable, respectful. This wasn't romance. It was something rarer. It was alliance. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said finally. 06:00, back to duty." "I know," she said. "Will you be safe?" He almost smiled. "That's the general idea." He stopped, reaching under his shirt. He pulled a thin silver chain from around his neck. It held 2 military-issue dog tags. He unhooked the chain, slid one of the tags off, and pressed it into her hand. The metal was warm from his skin. "This one's my spare," he said. "The ones they issue are for them, so they can identify you. The one you carry yourself, that's for you to remember who you are. This one, it's just metal. But it's good for safety." Vera closed her fist around it, the edges pressing into her palm. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," he said. He then reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small folded object. It was a tactical dog collar made of thick black nylon, the kind used for military canines, complete with a heavy-duty clasp. He knelt. "Valor, come." The dog sat obediently. Adam unclipped the simple leather collar Valor was wearing and expertly fitted the new tactical one. It looked impossibly professional on the young dog. Adam stood and patted Valor's head. "That," he said, looking at Vera, "is for the real protector." Vera looked at the tag in her hand and then at her dog, sitting proud and strong in his new collar. A slow smile spread across her face, bright and unburdened. "He is, isn't he?" Adam Walker just nodded. He gave Valor one last pat, looked at Vera, and the unspoken words hung in the air. "Stay safe, stay strong, keep fighting." He walked back to his truck, got in, and didn't look back as he drove down the gravel road. Vera stood there for a long time, the metal tag warming in her hand, until the sound of his engine faded. Then she turned, the setting sun at her back, and walked toward the barn where her dogs were waiting. She was strong. She was safe. She was free. If this story of courage and faith touched your heart, please help us spread this message by sharing this video with someone who needs it. Your share helps our community grow. Please also subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you never miss a story that inspires and uplifts. We read every single one of your comments, and they give us the strength to continue. We pray that God blesses and watches over you, your family, and all the innocent Valors in your life. May He give you the strength to be a protector and the courage to be a light in the darkness. If you believe in the power of faith and protection, please comment Amen below so we know this story has found its way to you. Thank you for watching.